let's try this again. I'm going to start from the top, and I'm going to just kind of go over everything that I started to talk about. I think I have my audio all set up here so I don't sound like helium, and you'll be able to hear what I'm playing with Ableton Live while I'm demonstrating the different elements of Impulse. So as you can guess, today I'll be covering all of the ins and outs of the instrument Impulse. This is a part of a ongoing bi-weekly live streaming series that I'll be doing on Ableton Live. I'm going to cover every facet of Ableton Live, beginning with the instruments that Ableton has included in their program. So let's get started, shall we? All right, so just as a review, if you want to add any instrument into your session, you can go up to the instrument sections under categories, select the instrument that you would like to apply to your session, and you can either click and drag the instrument into the area here that says drop files and devices, and you'll automatically be given a MIDI track that has your instrument placed on the device view here. Another way that you can do this is if you've got an empty MIDI track, you can just go to your instrument section and double click on any instrument, and it'll automatically be added to your empty MIDI track that you have selected. Another way that you can add an instrument is just by going and double clicking the instrument. And so that'll be added. Okay, so Impulse is what we're talking about today. And Impulse is basically the younger brother of the Ableton drum rack. And the reason I say that it's the younger brother of Ableton's drum rack is because it has a lot less to it. You have way fewer options with it, but it's still a very powerful instrument. And it's probably the best instrument for just hashing out really quick drum ideas, just if inspiration strikes. And Ableton Live has included a bunch of really great presets that you can find under the instruments section. And just if you click one of these triangle icons beside any of these instruments, it will unfold the subfolders or unfold the folders that contain various presets, instrument racks, etc., and so forth. So today I'm going to be using the Impulse 606, and as you can tell, if you've got this little headphone icon selected here, then you're going to get a preview of what the preset sounds like. Very interesting. And the preview that you're going to get, one thing that you might not know already is when you preview any of these tracks in your browser window, it's going to automatically be quantized to your global tempo settings, unless you click on this raw button down on the right of this waveform preview. So if we click this again, all right, so in that case it didn't work, but in most cases it does work, I promise. Okay, anyway, so there are two different types of files that you should be aware of, and those two types of files are .adg and .adv. So .adv is just a plain instrument that has some samples loaded onto it already. And a .adg is an instrument rack that contains this instrument. So what we're looking at down here is a .adv. And the definition for a .adv is an Ableton device preset that contains a stored variation of a live device. So that would, in this case, be an instrument that has a bunch of samples loaded onto it already. Now, a .adg, the definition for that is an Ableton device group files, or Ableton device group files. So it contains the preset for instrument racks, drum racks, or audio effect racks. So you can see our impulse here, but it's surrounded by an instrument rack. We haven't talked about instrument racks yet, but essentially what an instrument rack is just a group of instruments and effects that you can then save as a preset, and you can name it whatever you want. So if you've come up with a really great variation of an impulse device with maybe some compressors, or I always really like to put auto filter on there, and then automate the auto filter in my instruments. I can just have it already preset in a way that I like, and I can save it in my user library for later use whenever I feel like composing some music. So today, let's just focus on maybe an Impulse 808. So I'll just click and drag that in there. And what we can see here is up at the top, aside from the nameplate, is a selection of 8 boxes. And these 8 boxes are called sample slots. And as you can guess, this is where you're going to click and drag your samples so that you can start using the Impulse as a drum machine. So on your keyboard, one thing that you should be aware of is Impulse by default will trigger notes beginning with middle C. So we're talking C3. So on the very far left, this box here will be triggered by the C3 key on your keyboard, or on any of your pad controllers or whatnot. So the thing about this moving from left to right is it moves per tone. So when you're playing on your keyboard, you're not going to be able to hit any of the black keys. You're just going to be hitting all of the white keys, moving up from C, D, E, F, G, and so forth to the 8th note. Now, if we're working with Impulse, or if we're working with any synthesizer, and perhaps we're traveling, or we're in a spot where maybe we just don't have a MIDI controller, it's really easy to sketch out some ideas by just using the keyboard that is on your computer. So your computer MIDI keyboard. And in order to activate a computer MIDI keyboard, what we can do is just, I'll just focus your attention up to the top right here where this piano LED is. And that is our activation button for allowing us to start typing music, you could say. Now, when that is activated by either clicking on the LED or by using the quick keys Shift Command K, or on a PC, the quick key is let me just pull that up. Shift Command K, or Control Shift K for PC. I'm sorry, that was excruciating. So if I'm pressing the quick key on my Mac, you can see that LED is flashing there. So when that's engaged, we can use our keyboard letters A, W, S, E, D, F, T, G, Y, H, U, J, K, O, and L as replacements for our piano keys within our single scale. Now, the W, E, T, Y, U, and O keys are used as the sharps in our C major scale. And actually, if you draw this all out, you'll notice that the black keys W, E, T, Y, and U are positioned just like you would see on an actual piano keyboard. So if we're using the computer MIDI keyboard for maybe playing a melody, we can use those top keys for playing sharp notes. But in this case, with Impulse, we can only use that row of letters between A and L. One thing that you should be aware of with this keyboard is you have controls for velocity You also have controls for changing the octave that your keyboard is going to be triggering. So in order to lower the octave that your keyboard is playing, you hit Z, and to raise the octave, you hit X. Now, if you want to increase or decrease the velocity that the note data is producing while you're hitting those keys, because the keys on our keyboard are not velocity sensitive, you can use the keys C, velocity by intervals of 20, or V for increasing the velocity by intervals of 20. So let me just test this out with our impulse. So I've got this armed now. Right. Awesome. So like I had mentioned before, we do have limited control when we want to manipulate the sounds that we've got in Impulse, but we still have quite a bit of control to get a really great performance out of this instrument. So starting from the left and moving to the right, I'm going to demonstrate some of these controls. So the first knob is Start, and Start, you might be able to guess, will affect where the sample is going to start playing. So with the knob turned completely counterclockwise and the display reading 0.00 milliseconds, the sample is going to start from the very beginning of the sample. Now, if I push this over clockwise, it's going to move the start point later into our sample. Let's try the snare. So it's getting quieter because the only information that the snare sample is playing now is the very end of the snare sample where the sound has already gotten to its release phase in its volume envelope. So another function that we've got here that we can manipulate either using automation or just by modulating it by hand is the transpose key. Now the transpose key will pitch up or down your sample by either an increment of plus 48 semitones in either direction. Cool. Another really interesting feature that this has is the stretch function. And what the stretch function does is it uses Ableton's time stretch function. I believe they use their granular synthesis method to create this sort of distorted computery stretch sound that you would be familiar with if you listen to like glitch music or garage or anything like that. So let's have a listen to that. So let's use the snare drum. That's the start. It's like it's stretching the sample out without really affecting the length of the sample by much. Now, there are two different modes of stretch that we can use, and they sound completely different. So this is a demonstration of mode A, and if we click the mode button to B, then we get a much more pronounced stretching effect. Very cool. Now, a really neat thing that we can do to really make our beats sound like it's being performed in real life by a human, maybe on some sort of drum kit, is we can randomly adjust the velocity where if we're hitting the note much harder, then it stretches much more. Now, it's hard to demonstrate with, actually, do I have a... Okay, I'm going to gradually turn down the velocity that this note is playing by using my C and V keys. So right now, my velocity, as you can see down in the status bar, is at 127. So my velocity is at maximum. I'm going to slowly turn this down. There we go. So that really will allow you to add a bit more effect when you're using Impulse as a performance tool. Now we have the same function for the transpose knob. So if I hit this snare drum hard, then it increases the pitch of the sample. And the lighter I hit the note, or the lower the velocity is, the deeper the sound gets. Now, you don't have to have this turned all the way to 100%. If you only want the effect of either the transpose or the stretch effect to be just slight, you can turn it down anywhere between 0 and 100%, it's just really nice. Of course, random is a pretty interesting effect because it will randomly choose the pitch of the sample that it's transposing by every time you hit that note. And if you turn it down to like 35%, for example, the effect will be less pronounced. Now, another thing that you might notice, and this button appears on a few different instruments in Ableton Live, is the soft button. So what the soft button does is it just creates a slow fade in on the attack portion of the sample's launch. So let me turn this off. There's much less attack when the soft button is clicked. Let's try that with a hi-hat. So this is what the hi-hat sounds like with the soft engaged. More of a wishy-washy sound. So that's good for if you want to play softly. So next is our saturation section. So if we want to use this, we have to turn on our saturation by toggling on that switch. And then we have the option to adjust how much this sample is going to be driven. And basically what the saturation option does is it adds distortion to the sample and then increases the volume of the sample. So let me just turn this up gradually. That can add a lot more body and intensity to your samples as you're playing them. And because it's on a knob, you can also automate this or modulate it manually using an external MIDI controller. So to the right of the saturation section is just another option for applying filters. Now, filters are pretty much on every instrument that Ableton Live has. And so you're probably familiar with them already, but I'll just go over how to use this section properly. So in order to engage the filter section, of course, you have to hit the filter button to display that green LED there. Now, just like the transpose and stretch functions, we have the ability to adjust the frequency cutoff position based on the velocity that the note is being hit. So the higher the velocity, the higher frequency the frequency cutoff is going to be moving to. So first, let's just turn that down to 0. And let's choose something like maybe a band pass filter. So you can tell that that has cut out like so much of the frequencies. So if I adjust that, it's just allowing a very small band of frequencies to pass through as we adjust the filter cutoff. So if you're unfamiliar with the term filter cutoff, the cutoff of any filter is where the effect is going to start being applied to the signal. So in our case, with a filter frequency, if we have the filter frequency cutoff set to 825 hertz, and we have a band pass filter selected, that means that only a small band of frequencies around 825 hertz are going to make it to our speakers and then to our ears. If we had, like, let's say a low pass filter applied, then only the filter, only the frequencies that are below 825 hertz would be heard. So let's adjust this with the velocity setting and see how that works. So I'm going to turn my velocity all the way down, which has then turned the filter cutoff all the way down. So if I turn up my velocity, you can hear that filter opening wide. So just a review of all of the different filter types. A low pass filter, of course, allows only low frequencies to pass, and then it cuts out all of the high frequencies above the filter cutoff. There are two variations on the low pass filters, just like the band pass and high pass. A band pass filter is, as I had mentioned before, a filter that only allows a certain band of frequencies to pass through. Now, I believe that the two different variations of each of these filters allow for either a steeper slope on the knee of our cutoff. So basically toggling between 12 dB per octave of drop off or 24 dB per octave of drop off. So that means that every octave, if we have the 12 dB selected, which I believe would be LP1, per octave, the sound will drop 12 dB until it reaches minus infinity. And then low pass 2 is probably just a more intense, drastic filter with the 24 dB per octave. All right. So we're familiar with the random button. If we apply that, then we'll basically just be given a random filter cutoff every time we trigger that sample. All right, so now over here, this is where we can apply the decay option of our sample. This is basically just a mini version of our volume envelope controls that we usually have. But with this, we only get to choose basically how long the sample is going to be played before it is before it terminates. I'll turn off the filter. So that's allowing the entire sample to play. If I wanted to shorten the sample, I can just move the decay knob counterclockwise. Okay, of course, our pan, if we pan right, the sound comes out of the right channel. If we pan left, it comes out of the left channel. And then we can adjust which channel it comes out of based on the velocity that we're hitting our notes. So if we have it up to 100%, I believe that if we're hitting the notes very softly, it'll come out of the left side. If we hit it very hard, then it will come out of the right. Random will just create a random pan. Here we go. You may not be able to hear the panning because I only have a mono channel patched in right now, but I encourage you to test this out and just see what kind of effects that you can get out of it. It just makes a performance way more interesting if the drum samples are moving around a bit in the mix. So then we've got our volume knob here that just turns up or down the volume of our sample, and we can adjust the volume so that it will be played louder if we hit the note harder, so our velocity is higher, and we'll play at a quieter level if we hit the key a little bit softer. Our mute and solo buttons, of course. Random we covered. To the very right here, this is where we can see the global settings. So the global settings are going to affect all of the samples that you've got on your Impulse device before they are sent out to your audio output. So volume, of course, turns all of your samples up. Time, basically time stretches all of your samples. You can tell when I turn time all the way up, then that kick sample, all of my samples get stretched out quite long. If we turn it all the way down, it shortens all of the samples. And then, of course, transpose. Nice. Okay, one thing that you will probably notice if you're extremely observant is when you click on the right, the very far right sample slot here, you're given one more button. And this button is called the link button. And what the link button allows you to do is choke the seventh slot whenever your sample is triggered. So what this is intended for is for having hi-hats. So if you've got a hi-hat sample, let me just pull one up here. Got one hi-hat there. I've got a closed hi-hat here. All right. Oops. Okay. Okay. So if I have the link button engaged, so let's adjust the stretch of this. So can you hear that when I hit this closed hi-hat, it mutes the eighth sample slot? There we go. So that basically does it for Ableton's Impulse. So now you can start creating some loops and beats whenever you feel inspiration. So I'm going to demonstrate that because we have a couple minutes left and we got off to a bit of a late start. So I do want to show you a few techniques that you can use just like start getting some ideas down. So in order to start creating a loop, you need to create a clip. So all we need to do to create a clip is we can either click once inside of one of these clip slots in our session view, and then hit Shift-Command-M to create a new MIDI clip. Or just easier than that, you can just double-click on a MIDI slot, on a clip slot, and it'll create a default length of a clip for you. So right now we've got one bar here for our loop. So if I hit play, it's going to automatically play that loop, and it's just going to loop it. But what if I want to start adding notes in? One really cool way to do this is by hitting the session record button. And what it does is it allows you to basically overlay recording information. You can use this for like basically just creating variations in your beat. So I've got this engaged. I've got my arm button engaged, and we are rolling. So I'm going to start inputting data, but I just need a little tempo here so that I know where I'm at. Cool. So maybe I want to add a snare. So I've still got this button engaged, so I can just go like this. And so now we've got a bit of a problem because I was slow on hitting that first snare sound. So we can either just click and drag this sample over to its grid line, or to make it a little bit faster, especially if you've got a really sloppy performance to work with, you can go Command A to select everything inside of this piano roll area or the MIDI note editor. I do need to indicate that you have to click within the MIDI note editor area so that Ableton knows where you want to use your focused key commands. So Command A is basically the universal key command for selecting all. So click in there, Command A, and then you've selected all of your MIDI notes. Now, I want to just double check that my quantization settings are going to be correct for what I'm needing here. So I'm going to use the quick command Shift Command U to bring up my quantization settings. So the first option that we have is the adjustment of the quantization grid. Currently, it's set to 16th notes. And that probably would work, but I'm going to adjust it to play to eighth notes. I'm going to want the beginning of the note to be the quantized part of the note. And I don't want to have any inaccuracies. So I'm going to keep that quantization up to 100%. If I set this down at like 34, it won't quite quantize all of the MIDI data 100%. It'll just start moving the notes towards your quantization grid that you've chosen in the quantize 2 drop down here. So I do want it to be 100%, so I'm going to select that, and then I'm just going to hit OK, and that moved my snare drum right over. Another way to do this, if you don't want to go into the quantization settings menu, all you need to do is just select all of your notes and then hit Command U. I'm just going to take a quick guess here that Control U is going to be the quick key on a PC, but don't quote me on that. Nice. So let's step it up a notch. And like, let's say I don't want to do any quantization after I've recorded my beat. What if I want the quantization to actually happen while I'm recording and performing my MIDI tracks? So all I need to do to adjust these settings is by going up into the Edit menu. And if you scroll down, you'll find the Record Quantization dropdown. And in this sub-menu, you'll be able to select what grid you would like your performance to automatically be quantized to. Now, it looks like I've already got 30-second note quantization enabled. So I'm going to try to do something a little bit more pronounced so that I can show you guys how this works. So let's try eighth note quantization. This is probably going to sound really bad, but let's just do it. So I'm going to hit the space bar to get my track playing, and then I'm going to hit this button up here so then I can start recording. And let's give it a shot. So maybe I want to hit 16th notes. Do you think I can do it? So it's automatically quantizing to an eighth note grid. Of course, you can hear the notes as I'm playing them, but only for the just for the period of time that you're actually playing the notes. And then afterwards, you've got a perfectly quantized set. So, I mean, in this case, I would change the quantization settings to something that is a little bit more relevant to what I'm trying to play. So let's do that now. And then I'm going to show you something else that's really cool. I'm just briefly going to give you a demonstration of Ableton's Groove quantization settings. So let's go to the Edit menu, Record Quantization. I'm going to use 16-note quantization because I don't need any 30-second notes. I'm going to hit the space bar to get my track rolling. Nice. So that's perfectly quantized. Everyone that listens to that, they're all going to think, "Wow, Aaron's just so good at playing his computer MIDI keyboard." Maybe not, but okay. Anyway, we've got all of these selected by selecting in our MIDI note editor, and then using Command A. And then I'm going to, I want to apply a bit of a swing to this to give it a bit more of a groove. So I'm going to draw your attention down to this clip area here, and you'll see this title that says groove, and nothing is activated right now. But what I want to do is I want to add a groove to my groove pool. So this wavy icon here is the groove pool. And if I select it, I'll get this new menu that will pop up. Now, in order to access some of my grooves that I've got, I just need to control click in here, or right click, or two-finger click if you're on a trackpad to present this context menu. And I'm going to click Browse Groove Library. So this is a collection of all of my grooves that I've got. So I'm looking for a swing. So I'm going to go, maybe let's listen to some hip hop swing. I'm going to preview these groove files. Nice. I think I like this one. So let's just drag this into my groove pool. There might be a couple more that I might like. So I'm just going to drag a few here. Ooh, the breakbeat sounds pretty good. Great. So now that I've got this all added into my groove pool, I'll be able to find it down here in my drop-down menu in my groove section of my detail view here. So let's get our track playing. I'm going to select all of the notes, and then I'm going to adjust the groove that we're listening to. Nice. Let's adjust the grid that this is going to have an impact on my track with. Maybe eighth notes. Interesting. Let's try some of these other ones. Cool. Very cool. Now, grooves can actually be extracted from any MIDI or audio data that you have, if you have Warp enabled on your audio data. But with MIDI, if you just want to extract the groove, all you have to do is just right-click on your MIDI clip or your audio clip and go down to Extract Groove or Grooves. And that will create a unique groove sample that you can use to sync up the quantization of any other instrumentation that you might have on your session. Great. So if you want to review any of the stuff that we've talked about, I encourage you to go to my website at www.learnableton.spacefood.ca and just have a look at some of the lesson notes that I've put together today for you guys to review. Basically, I've included some pictures. I've also included some definitions that are really important to understand. If I haven't explained something clear enough, then you have the opportunity to just go through everything and clear up some of your questions here. So I have basically covered everything that is included in here. Well, except for hot swap. So hot swapping mode basically allows you to automatically preview or change the sample that's being played. And the hot swap button is this little, almost looks like a recycling button or something. So if I engage that, then whenever I hit a new sample, I'll be able to hear it in context with my MIDI clip. So let's try it. Cool. So that's hot swap. And you can hot swap files on in and between multiple instruments in Ableton Live. Great. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this a live broadcast. I'm going to continue doing these, of course, bi-weekly, every Sunday at 7 p.m. and every Tuesday at 7 p.m. as well. Beginning by just going over every one of Ableton's instruments. If you're interested in finding a schedule of the instruments that I'll be teaching every week, you can go to my website and just look for the blog post that says online live streaming lecture schedule. I think that's what it's called. And you'll be able to find which instruments I'm going to cover on which day. I really would love it if you would take a couple minutes to just fill out the survey that's at the bottom. It's just a little link that's underneath this video. Just to give me a little bit of feedback on how I did. I know there were a few technical difficulties today, but I'm working on it, and I promise that these lessons will just get better and better and more fluid every time. So I'd love your feedback. Love to hear from you. If you want to learn something specific, I my best to include that in one of my online lectures. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to teach you next time. Bye.